Welcome to Seltzer Squad, the podcast about staying sober in the city, with your hosts, Kate Zander and Jess Valentine.
Jess, what's our number one piece of advice when people are getting sober?
Therapy.
So much therapy that I'm going to school to be a giver of therapy.
This is true.
BetterHelp reached out to partner with us at the Seltzer Squad to offer 10% off a monthly membership to BetterHelp.com.
What is BetterHelp.com?
BetterHelp is an online therapy platform that is for individuals, for couples. You take a short quiz, you get matched up with a mental health professional, and you, through the app, are able to video, or you can just message back and forth with a licensed professional to give you counseling and guidance on anything and everything that you're going through.
So how do our listeners use our code?
You just go to betterhelp.com/Seltzer Squad and you'll receive 10% off your first month.
Hey, Kate, what's another way that the squad can help support the podcast?
In addition to just listening or signing up to our Patreon, y'all can shop our online merch store, which has a variety of different sober treats, from mugs to sweatshirts to tanks and tees.
Everything.
All of our signature sayings are all over our sober merch. So visit seltzersquadshop.com and check it out.
Treat yourself to something sober while supporting the pod.
Hello, Jessica.
Well, hello, Kate. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm fine. I'm hungry, so I'm gonna eat some dinner soon. But let's talk a little bit. So, actually, wait. Before we even get into anything, you sent me Demi Lovato, who we've discussed because they have had obviously very public. They've got a song called Sober, and then they relapsed, and then they almost died, and then they had another show come out, and I watched it, and I was like, I still don't like this person. But then they almost died from overdosing on, I think it was like heroin or fentanyl.
Heroin,
and then but then they started drinking again, and now apparently they're not drinking anymore, and they're saying they're shunning it, right?
Yeah, so I sent you a screenshot,
sober.
and I was just avoiding my life and catching up on celebrity headlines, and it said Demi Lovato is now going to be sober as her previous California sober, and it wasn't even, in my opinion, California. Yeah,
no, because she was still drinking.
Yes.
So Cali sober means you do not drink, but you smoke weed.
Yes. So they were still kind of doing the moderation route, I guess. And now the headline is that they are doing sober. So I don't know.
But they're also shunning, aren't they? Saying like, this is the only way. It's
I haven't read. I don't know if I've read enough. But I feel I'm glad that they kind of came to this realization. This is exactly what we talked about when we talked about before. Is like, even Elton John in the docuseries was like, sober's the only way to go, kiddo, and
I know.
Unfortunately, obviously sober, there's a lot of ways to do it now. It's not just like AA or the highway. So I'm hoping that they have found hopefully a more balanced approach to sobriety, because I do think that it feels all or nothing, and we all want to talk ourselves into being able to moderate. I know that that's not in the cards for me. Everybody is different. But I'm curious, what I want to talk about on this episode is I'm curious for your response to, do you think that it was like alcohol abuse and your addiction issues were always in the cards for you, or do you think it could have been prevented?
Oh, I think it was always in the cards for me. I don't know. I mean, also this goes back to like, is it a disease? Like sometimes, is it a learned behavior? Is it like from society? Like, was it like nurture versus nature? Like all that kind of stuff. I think that there's so much that we could like unpack about this. But I think for me personally, I think I was destined to become an alcoholic.
Oh, okay.
Well, like I don't think I was like, I'm set up properly for, moderation. Moderation is like not in my vocab. And it's weird. It's funny because I had an alcoholic, like my biological father was an alcoholic, but I was never around him, never around him. So, but my grandfather and my uncle were also, but I was so young that I didn't pick up on that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it, and then my mom and my dad were like stepdad, who's my dad, like not at all.
Yeah.
So it's not like I was like living in it and around it and this is all I knew, because that's just not how I grew up. I will say that I have like obviously undealt traumas and stuff like that, and I definitely used it as a coping mechanism slash honestly, not even a coping mechanism, as more as it's like the only way that I had any sort of like dopamine or like had fun.
Yep.
What about you? What do you think?
I feel like it's kind of a toss up because my grandfather was an alcoholic, but he was already sober when I like growing up.
Okay.
And no one talked about, like, I didn't find out that he was an alcoholic, I don't think, until I had started drinking when I was a teenager. And my dad said, like, well, your grandpa was an alcoholic, so you're going to, don't overdo it or you're going to become, and that didn't mean anything. Because I didn't have parents who drank. So I never saw people consuming alcohol responsibly or like having a glass of wine with dinner. Like alcohol it was just not around. We didn't talk about it. There were no like explaining the dangers of like what happens. And then when I was a teenager and it was cool to drink, it was cool to get drunk. So it wasn't cool to have a glass of wine when I was 14. It was cool to like rip vodka shots and like feel silly, and like get fucked up. And then I really think the biggest part of me becoming an alcoholic was due to society and booze culture. Is that you go out for happy hour, you meet people for drinks, you know what I mean? You deal with your problems with alcohol, you celebrate with alcohol. So I think for that reason, I was definitely destined to have an issue with it because I was totally ill-equipped as far as like, I drank because I had social anxiety and being around other people, it was difficult for me. So for me to find a way to cope with that in a way that was socially, acceptable, I think that's what really was like the super highway for me to become dependent on that as like a crutch. Like, well, if I can get a little silly, I can talk to people, or I can meet boys, or I can dance, or I can, go out and do all these things that I wanted to do, but I was like too nervous to do.
Like become like the person that you want to be in one facet.
And then the other part of me thought that that's just what adults did, is like, oh, I'm an adult now. We go to happy hour after work. We go out on Saturday nights and Friday nights. There was no one, it was like either that or my parents who were sitting at home doing nothing. And my parents never went to parties. And I knew that I didn't just want to sit at home all the time. And there was no happy medium between people who went out and didn't drink. And it was just, and then I, of course, surrounded myself with people that were like always drinking. I don't even think it really dawned on me that people had a normal drinking behavior for a long time. Like I remember even in like my first job when I was in my 20s, and I would just get like fucking wrecked at these happy hours, and then I would show up to work the next day and I just assumed everyone would be just as wrecked as me. And it started to dawn on me that like, oh, I'm drinking differently than they are drinking.
Yeah, totally. I wonder, like, obviously it progresses into, getting worse and worse, but is progressional, is that a word?
Yeah,
it is. That's a word. Oh, sick. But I always think back to the first night I got like drunk. I never had an interest really of drinking. Like it just wasn't something that I cared about. Maybe because I had heard about like, family members being alcoholics and stuff. It just I never cared. I never like sought it out. And then I went to see Cabaret on Broadway. I remember this very clearly. And we went to dinner. I ordered like a Coke or whatever, a Pepsi was my dinner. I was underage, of course. I was like, I don't know, 18, 19. But I was with my ex-husband, who was well beyond my years. So 12 years older than me. So I don't know, what is that? Like he was like 30. And I remember we went to a Broadway show, and he went to get refreshments, and he came back with a vodka cranberry for me. And I didn't like it, but I drank it, and then he got me another. I probably had 2 or 3, and I wish it was like the first time I had been drunk. And it was like, I had all the experiences, I was giddy and happy. And I also then got mad and I threw my engagement ring on like Fifth Avenue or whatever. But like, that was really, I don't know. I like wish that I could go back and like not drink those, because I associated it with a good time. You know what I mean? And then like we'd go to cons. Also, I don't know what even prompted him to get me that.
Right.
Like, I don't know, but we could also like, there's a lot to unpack there. Why the fuck is a 30-year-old with a fucking 18-year-old to begin with? But yeah, I don't know. And then I'm like, he obviously was well into his adulthood. So, and then he was a pretty heavy drinker. So then I'm like keeping up, and then it obviously snowballed. But I'm wondering, like, if that wasn't my experience, would I have become an out? Like, would I?
Right.
It's just.
I remember also growing up when I was a teenager, all we did was watch Sex and the City, and all they do on Sex and the City is drink. But they don't get drunk. They don't get like there. I think there are maybe a handful of episodes where each one of them get like a little silly, and they're like you know, a little loose. But no one was like fucking fall down hammered drunk, except for that time when she was dating that guy in AA.
Or like, and the time that Carrie like got so drunk and she woke up with some guy, but they didn't fuck.
Right.
And she blacked out.
Yes.
But other than that, and like, yeah, you're right. Like they glamorized it. But also.
Like they were always talking about having drink in hand. And I don't think in my like little kid brain that I, like obviously they were moderating. They were able to like have a Cosmo or 2 Cosmos or whatever. And so I like, just thought that like, oh, adults just drink these, and like didn't realize that alcohol is poisonous and can fuck your like balance up in your 100%. Your brain. So I think that has a large part to do with how I viewed like the glamorization of alcohol and like strive for that as sophistication.
100%. I 100% want it to be like that. And then I was living in the city or Brooklyn, but you know what I mean? And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And like, but like you said, the difference is that they're moderating themselves, but like, we don't think like that. I don't know. It's just interesting because they're in their 30s in the show while we're 21.
Yeah, 20. I was like 14 when the show first came out. Like I was a tiny child, you know? And then,
I didn't watch it when it first came out. I watched it
but I was still
on.
A teenager when it came out. And I remember that was one of the reasons why I wanted to move to New York is like I loved the city and everything and like the hustle and bustle of it all. And I thought that was very much like, oh, after dinner, we all go out and get these cute, quaint little drinks. And I would never be able to control myself. And like before I knew it, I was blacking out like basically since I started drinking.
Yeah. But I guess the best way of putting it right is that we didn't realize that it affects you so much.
No. And they never really showed like someone doing it poorly. Like I also grew up watching like fucking Friends and Seinfeld, and none of them had a drinking problem. No one had a drinking problem. Alcohol wasn't
six people, not one of y'all's an alcoholic.
Yeah, like exactly.
They like weren't big drinkers.
I mean, off screen they were struggling with addiction, but not on screen. You know.
But also, like, why weren't my friends like that in our 20s? Why didn't we just hang out at a fucking coffee shop rather than the bar? Like that would have been nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
So I think about that, and it's like it's interesting because I wonder if that's not the difference between me and my sisters, because my sisters both don't really have a tendency towards like they drank in college and stuff, and like I think they've definitely both had their fair shares of like nights where they've drank too much, but drinking has never been the forefront of, you know, my older sister drinks quite a bit. Like I would say she maybe drinks daily, like, but she never overindulges.
Yeah.
And so I think that the only thing I can think of like how we were raised all the same way, you know, I guess the only other thing is that I had this other, you know, I consumed different media, and then obviously my mom died, and so I don't know if that just took the place of a coping mechanism to take away the pain away, because my little sister was like 13. She was pretty young to be, you know, she didn't have any really real ways to get her hands on alcohol, but I did. And my older sister was already like, I think she was engaged already at that point.
She was, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting.
It's hard because, I mean, I'm with you 100%. The only thing that I can think of as far as like, was I born to be wild?
Right.
Was like that I do have moderation issues and addiction issues in other areas of my life. So then it's like, well, I know I have an addictive personality. So was I born this way, or did it develop from my alcoholism? Like, I don't know. Like,
or did it turn into alcoholism? Yeah.
Right. Is it just transference? Is it,
I don't know. Do you think you still struggle with extremes?
You're talking to a girl that's 95% covered in tattoos.
Yeah.
But a lot of that was
now,
also the same shit.
Now, you know, like today, because I feel like I don't swing as far into the extremes. I mean, my emotions certainly do. Like, I am high, I am low, I am fucking alive, I am dead, like all in the span of a day of waking hours. I don't know. But I think I'm just coping with it differently. Like, I'm able to now be like, wait, like, and I think like I'm a pacifier, so I'll look for pacifiers. That used to be alcohol, it'd be shopping, it'd be food.
I think like the way like my pendulum would swing more dramatically because I always was under the influence of alcohol. Yeah. So now that that's removed, sure, I don't get as far out, you know, but I don't know.
Right.
I don't know, because so much of my life I was drinking like regularly. Not that I was wasted every day or anything like that, but I was drinking regularly. Sure. So I don't know. I also was unmedicated. I wasn't on my Zoloft. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say. Because I think if I was still drinking today, I would still be as erratic. Like I still would go as far out. I'm just not. So is it my age and growth, or is it just the absence of alcohol?
Yeah, I would say it's probably a little bit of both, you know? Like,
yeah, I agree. I
think therapy, because, right, like I think therapy has helped us like look into the swings. Because I think before we were just operating like, you just felt the swings and you didn't know what to do. You just had to like grab the next thing that felt good. And now it's like, no, the thing is to not actually grab. It's to like feel.
Yeah. We didn't have tools. We had escapism. But now we have the tools and we don't have the escapism. But I don't know if I had them both.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Like say I was, I don't know. I think that because I make so many poor choices or extreme choices when I'm drinking, that I probably still would be a little crazy. I'm sure I'd be a little toned down, say, because I am going to therapy and I have those tools. So if I had them both, then I'm sure it would be a little bit different, because now that I am medicated, now that I have all these tools, you know, I know how to deal with myself a lot better. But that's not to say that like the alcohol wouldn't still impact things. So I don't know.
Like I don't think now
I could go. Sense?
Yeah, I don't think now it's like I can't go back now because I already have this thing. But if I had started with better tools in the first place, I don't know that I would have ended up here.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
But I can't. I think if, let's just say tomorrow we could like wave the before Demi Lovato flag and be like, I'm going to moderate. I don't know that I wouldn't have, I feel as though I would end up in the same place as I did, 6 years ago, where things were really bad.
If you did
again.
this when?
Now, let's just say now I'm like, I have a handle on everything. I'm going to start having one glass of wine or whatever. I think that the shame of feeling like I failed this would outweigh any of the benefit of allowing myself like moderation or whatever. I don't think I would ever get over the shame of like going back to drinking.
I think I hear you. And I totally get that. Like letting yourself down. I wouldn't be even the shame. Well, yeah, I would be a little bit of shame. I think what would happen for me is I think that I would probably be able to moderate it. But then I think something like things come up. Like I would go to a wedding or go to a party and then I'd get drunk. You know what I mean? Yep. And so I feel like for me,
it would
creep back in. I think it would be a slow burn.
Yep.
I think that I'd be able to definitely, I think I'd be able to I think basically what I'm saying is I'd have to quit again. But I think that I could go longer.
Yeah.
I think that if I was to pick up tomorrow and just moderate, I think that I could. I 100%
Like for the
think
first
that I could.
few, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe even more. Who knows? But I know that I like being drunk.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy, I mean, yeah, sometimes I just enjoy the way something
stressor would
tastes.
stress me to push it beyond like an like let's just say like TJ fucking dies or something. I think I would then use that as an excuse to like let it go all the way. And I think even just
that's like a little extreme.
Well, like I think that that's what stressors do to like addiction is that they push you into thinking that that's okay again, you know, because you're so stressed, you don't have any other coping mechanisms. And so, you know, society tells us, somebody dies, everybody goes out and gets hammered, and it's like you get a pass, you know?
I know this sounds like shitty, but I wish that I could just one day I wish I could be as happy one day like sober as I get like from drinking. Like I feel like I only am not I get so giddy. Giddy is actually the word. Like excited and giddy and this and that. I don't have that feeling sober.
Right.
And I miss that.
Yep.
And I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Like the carefreeness of it.
Yeah, or just honestly like just getting excited.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just like I just happy. And I know that's so stupid. I know it's probably irresponsible of me to even be saying this, but I'm just being honest. Like I do miss that. Like I wish that I could get that same feeling without having to drink. But I don't think I'll never have that feeling again.
Right.
I don't know. It's interesting. Maybe I just need to up my fucking antidepressants because obviously my brain doesn't make as much serotonin as it's supposed to. Like legitimately, it doesn't.
I feel like the only answer that it made me think of is that I think all of that excitement lives in us. I think that alcohol just lessens our ability to care what other people think, and it's almost an excuse for like. You could, you know what I mean? When you were describing that, it makes me think of like being on a beach and being drunk and then going skinny dipping. And it's like, you could do that anyway and be like, fuck yeah, I'm going to go skinny dipping. But it's almost like alcohol is a little bit of a free pass to like be a little dangerous. Like a sober person on a beach who strips down could be construed as crazy, right? But like a person that's drunk is just drunk.
Person is just drunk.
Yeah, they're just having fun being drunk. And I feel like we all have that capacity in us, but we don't have the vulnerability to like let that out and be our full selves in the day to day, where alcohol like sort of unlocked that for me. It was like, who fucking cares? Like, I don't care when I care about everything in sober life. Like I care about fucking all the things. And I also wish that sometimes I could just like let fucking loose and not worry about anything. And that's the one thing that I guess I miss. And I could argue that we still could do that. It just hits different, you know?
Yeah. And I just like, I feel like I would get so excited about nothing. Get excited, get hyper, which was probably the cocaine, and be happy. But I do miss that feeling like, oh my God. And honestly, I would say the closest thing or the most, or maybe that was the same feeling, was like when I fell in love, like that was really like, you get giddy and you get excited about like dumbass shit. Like, but that is like, that fades. Like you don't get as excited every time you fucking go to fucking IKEA together. Like, you know, like it's just not, I don't know.
I think about when I get it, or when I used to get it like before drinking, and it would be like if you were part of the soccer team and you fucking win or something like that, like that like excitement, that
adrenaline rush.
Yeah. And it's like you don't get that anymore, like in adulthood. You don't get like that fuck yes, you know, like vibe.
I mean,
and we all need more of that.
Exactly. I know. Can I just get shots of adrenaline?
Yeah, maybe that's what we need. We just need
we just need to go to Six Flags.
Because you're right. Like it is like that roller coaster feeling where you get off and you're like turned up.
Exhilarated.
Yeah. Maybe we need a sober trip to Six Flags to fucking, I call it lighting a fire under your ass, where you're like excited about life in the moment for a minute. Like, fuck.
I would like more moments of that.
Yes.
Naturally.
Yes. Yeah, but I don't miss. I don't wish I could Do you wish that you could go back? I don't really miss that anymore. I think there was a lot of years I spent like just thinking there was like I was in turn like forever broken and I would never be able to enjoy life again. And I don't feel that way now. I feel like drinking is a waste of time now, but I certainly do miss, like, if I could go back and do it all again and moderate, would I? Probably wouldn't.
Yes.
I wouldn't think about it.
Yes. I feel like, yeah, like, but we would not be the people that we are right now.
No, you're right. You're right.
Like, so, like, all of my good things in my life have come from me getting sober.
Yep.
So it's like, you know, Back to the Future, like you go back and you change one thing and then everything changes. Like, you know, I think if I went back and was able to moderate, who knows what my life would be like. I had all this undealt trauma and stuff, and it sucks because I wish that I could go and like hug that girl, that version of me that didn't realize that she was like broken. But yeah, I don't know. It would have saved us a lot of shame and a lot of heartbreak and hurt and pain if we could have gone back and moderated. But at the same time,
you're right. We wouldn't have.
It's why we are how we are here. So I don't really regret any of it. It just would be nice to have fonder memories. Like, you know what I mean?
Looking back, it's a little painful because like the drinking years are definitely like a period in my life that kind of has like a cloud over it. And like good shit happens sometimes. Like, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But
of course,
it definitely feels like it was this cycle of self-sabotage to where I really couldn't ever stay and enjoy something for a long period of time because I would fuck it up and create chaos for sure.
Or you don't even remember it. You black out and don't remember it. So
good point.
Yeah.
Good talk.
All
I
right.
liked that one.
Good talk. I like that one. All right.
Until we meet again.
Be nice to yourself.
Don't forget, hangovers suck.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Every review helps other listeners find us. Music by Dead Go West. Art by Kate Sander. For show notes and resources, check out seltzersquad.com.